Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the second part of our session on Rossler AxTraxPro integration with the KONE Elevator Destination Control. In this part, we are going to talk about defining and setting the user's elevator access rights in the AxTraxPro system. If you haven't heard yet the first part of the session, you should refer to and watch first the first part of Rossler's AxTraxPro integration with the KONE Elevator Destination Control session to well understand this second part. My name is Giora. I'm a process engineer at Rossler Security Products, and thank you for joining me on this presentation. In the first part, we said that the AxTraxPro integration with KONE allows the control of the user's access rights, the card holder's rights, the access rights to the various elevator floors from the AxTraxPro system. By the system, we can control and determine who can go to which floor, when, and by which elevator or by which group of elevators or zone of elevators. We showed that we are using groups of floors access rights and timetables, groups of access rights and timetables that are already defined in the KONE server. We demonstrated how to retrieve this data to the AxTraxPro server to allow us later to configure in the AxTraxPro the user's elevator access rights. We explained that actually we synchronize the AxTraxPro server with the KONE server data, and with that retrieved information of various groups of access rights, time zones, and users categories, which are already defined in the KONE server. With this information, we can build the user's elevator access rights in the AxTraxPro. So after we showed in the first part that we retrieved all the needed information from the KONE Elevator Control server, we will go now to the AxTraxPro and make all the necessary settings for the user and define his elevator access rights. We will add the user elevator access right via the new elevators tab in the user properties screen in the AxTraxPro. So we need now to open the user properties screen. When we want to set elevator access rights to a user, it doesn't matter whether he is an existing user, a new user, or a visitor. We will just go to this specific user in the AxTraxPro through his specific department in the AxTraxPro GUI and press the Edit button to open his user properties screen. Here, the Edit button to open the user's properties screen. Alternatively, we can press the plus button, the add button, to open and add a new user and present his new user's properties screen. Here, the plus button. In this demonstration, we will press the plus button, the add button, to create a new user and open his new user properties screen. So we'll press the plus button here. And now we have to fill in all the fields with the new user's information. But one important thing is not to forget to assign that user a 56-bit weekend format card, as this is the only format we work with KONE. This is the only format that is supported. That means that we can transfer card information to the KONE server in 56-bit format only. So we will skip now all the other fields in this screen and focus only on this issue now, the 56-bit format credential card configuration. So we will press the Credentials tab in the User Properties screen. Here, this is the Credential tab. Okay. We can see that from this drop-down menu that is presented here, we can add the user a Wigan 56-bit format card. So we will select the Wigan 56 line. Now the user is added a new Wigan 56-bit format card. And it is important to understand that in this process, if we add a card to the user or delete a card from the user in the AxTraxPro system, at the end of the process, it will also be updated in the KONE server as well. In the same way, activating or deactivating a card in the AxTraxPro system and making a card active or inactive, it will also be updated in the KONE server as well. What also can be seen in the user's properties screen is that in the new version of AxTraxPro software, a new tab was added to the screen, the elevator tab. Here, the elevator tab. In this new tab, we define and configure the user's elevator access rights. So we will press now the elevator tabs. And here we see the elevator user setting screen. Here we define the user's elevator access rights. First, we'll talk about the upper section, the user data section here, the user data section, and then we will talk about the access rights section, this section. And the first field in the user data section is the elevator user ID. We can see that this field is empty now. At the beginning of the process of defining and setting the user's elevator access rights, at the beginning of the process, this field is empty. It will be filled automatically by the KONE server at the end of the process. At the end of the process, when we click the last and final OK button, all the new users configurations and settings done and created in the AxTraxPro will be sent to the KONE server to be updated. At that moment, the KONE server will issue this new user an ID, is elevator user ID. And the next time we open this user in the AxTraxPro and click the elevator tab here, this elevators tab here, in his user properties screen, we will see the elevator user ID that was issued for him by the KONE server. We'll see it here. So we will not touch now this field, and we will move to the next field, the elevator setting field. The elevator setting field here, elevator setting, yes. The elevator settings are settings that determine the connectivity to the KONE server and the data that is retrieved from the KONE server. Elevator setting 1, which is written here, is actually the name of the configuration that includes the parameters of the connection to the KONE server and define what information will be retrieved from the KONE server. You have to understand that different KONE servers in different sites, in different buildings, may have their own specific elevator settings configuration. And we may have the option to choose between several KONE servers that we want to connect to. In order to make things clear, and simple and have some order, we can name each elevator settings configuration of each one of the servers after the name of the building. And then we will have to select here in this field the elevator setting field between these different names of various elevator settings configurations of these servers. Here, in this demonstration, we have the option to connect to one server only, and it has the default name elevator setting 1. It has the default name elevator setting 1 for its elevator setting configuration. So here we chose the elevator setting 1 because this is the default. Then we have the user category field. Here, the user category field. If we press the drop-down menu here, we will see that we have two categories here. We have to select for each user his category. The user category is part of the data and information that we get from the KONE server. The user category is defined on the KONE server. It is a definition coming from KONE. We already talked about it in the first session, and I will repeat this explanation to remind you here again. The user category, it is exactly like as we have in the AxTrax, the departments. In the AxTrax system, the users sit under different departments. In the same way, also here in the KONE server, the users sit under different user categories. We said in the first part that not always the KONE server defines and creates user categories. What can make this field in the screen here empty and nothing to select. But if the KONE server does divide users to different categories, then one category must be selected here for the user. And regarding the question, what category to select here in this field for this specific user, then in order to answer this question, we have to understand that the administrator that sets up the user elevator setting here is supposed to be familiar also with the KONE server settings. And he knows under which category this user is defined in the KONE server. So he knows what to select. For this demonstration, we will select people flow. So we will press people flow. And then we will go to the next field, the home flow field. If we press the drop-down menu of the next field, the home flow field here, press the drop-down menu, we will see a list of floors. If we set here a floor number, it would mean that every time that this user swipes his card at the elevator reader, the elevator is invited for him for this specific floor only, and is not allowed to other floors. So we can understand from here that it is not a must to give every user a group of access rights. Some users may have only a home floor, and that's it. That it's all its access rights. But if the user is not assigned to a home floor, then we would have to assign him access rights groups. Assign him access rights groups to set his floor access rights, as we will see later on in the access rights section below. Here we will be here in this section, the access rights section. So now we will press none. So the user will not have a home floor. So we'll press none. We don't want him to have a home floor. And then there is the last field in the user data section here, the last field, the call type field. If we press the drop-down menu here, if we press the drop-down menu of the call type field, we will see the available call types that we retrieved from the KONE system, and we will have to select one of them. Here we see here we can see here 5 call types that can be assigned when we define a user. The call type we choose will become part of the user's properties. Every time the user swipes his card at the elevator reader, the behavior of the call for the elevator would be according to the call type definition assigned to this specific user. For every call type, there is a different behavior. And as we said, every site and every building can have different call types. All the various call types are KONE definitions and can be found in the KONE manual. We see on this screen 5 different call types. We already talked about it in the first part of our session, but I will repeat quickly to remind you. We have the normal call type. It means no special behavior, just normal operation. Then we have handicap. Every time this specific user calls for an elevator, when the elevator arrives, the elevator doors will open for an extended period of time. Then we see priority. Every time this specific user calls for an elevator, he has priority over other users, and an elevator will be directed to him first. Then we see empty car. It means that every time this specific user calls for an elevator, the elevator will arrive empty. And last, we have space allocation. Every time this specific user calls for an elevator, a white compartment elevator will be invited. Here in this demonstration, we will select the most common one, the normal call type. So we'll press normal. And we actually finished the user data section, and we'll go to the next session, the access right section. But before that, I want to remind you that, as we said, not always we have to assign the user access right groups. If we saw that if we select for the user a home floor to allow him only to a specific floor, then that is his access rights. But if the user doesn't have a home floor, we have to assign him floor access rights. We have to assign him access domains. Here we see the access domain and the access rights. And we have to do it via the access right section. And in order to add the user access domains and access rights, we will have to press the plus button here, the add button in the access rights section. And when we do that, the add access right screen will open the add access right menu. Here we select for the user access domain, where is the cursor? The access domain and access right groups. And please notice that you should know that the user can have more than one access domain and more than one access right group. We will see in a minute that this setting operation creates a view table with the user's access domain and the user's access rights groups for us to view. And this view table can be filled with more than one line. In each line of the table, there will be a selected access domain, and next to it, a selected access rights group. For every single access domain that we choose, there are several different groups of access rights that belong to this access domain, and we have to choose one of them. It means that For every access domain we select, we have several access rights groups that we have to choose from. So now we will select an access domain for the user. We will press on the drop-down menu of the access domain and see the various options. Here, this is the access domain, and you go to the drop-down menu, and we can see here three access domains that we can select. You can see group 1, group 2, and people flow. As we already said, the access domain represent groups of elevators in different zones and different areas and domains in the building. And according to that, the building can also be divided. Access domain is a KONE predefined group containing a collection of elevators in a single lobby or in a specific zone, area, or domain. The access domain actually determines to which elevators the user is allowed. Every access domain has its list of access rights groups that are related to him, and from that list, we will choose the group of access rights for the user assigned to that specific access domain. Again, the names that appear here, group 1, group 2, mean nothing and are just for example and demonstration and are not real-life names as we connect it to the KONE test and demo server. As we said, real-life names of access domains can be something like high zone, low zone, middle low zone, etc., etc. So we can see here three access domains that we can select: group 1, group 2, and people flow. We will see that people flow is a mandatory dedicated domain. Every user must have people flow in his access domain list. Otherwise, he wouldn't have any permissions or access rights. So later on, we will add the people flow domain to the user as well. So first, let's select one of the access domains here. We will choose first group 1. And later, we will also add and select the people flow mandatory domain too. So we'll select group 1. And after we selected group 1 as an access domain, we will select for the user an access rights group for that domain, group 1. As we said, once we select one of the access domains in the menu, the related access rights group that belong to that specific access domain that we just selected will appear now in the drop-down menu of the access rights field. And we can select one of these access rights groups. So we will press the drop-down menu of the access rights field and see all the relevant access rights groups that belong to access domain called group 1. Here. These are all the relevant access rights groups that belong to access domain called group 1. These are the groups. So this is the list of groups of access rights of group 1 domain. These groups of access rights remind us our Rosler access groups in the AxTraxPro. These access groups, these access rights groups here contain numbers of floors exactly like as our Rosler access groups contain readers and doors. A user that will be assigned with such a group will be allowed to go to these specific floors that are in this group. And when he swipes his card at the elevator smart reader, the elevator smart destination terminal, the allowed floors will appear on the terminal touch screen, and the user will have to select one of them. So while the access domain here, determines to which elevators the user is allowed, the access rights groups here determines to which floors in these elevators he is allowed. And again, the names that appear here mean nothing and are just for example and demonstration and are not real life names. Real-life name for access right group may include floor numbers and names of companies lodging on these floors. For example, access rights group name can be something like Rosler 22 to 24, meaning Rosler is the name of the company, and 22 to 24 are the floor numbers. Okay, so after we understood that, uh, we will choose now one of the access rights groups of domain group now, group one. We will select, for example, sandbox group 121. Okay. And now we will press the OK button here. And now we can see here that now we can see that the first line was added to the table. Here, this is the first line with the new access domain called group one and the new access right group that belong to this group one, the new access rights group called sandbox group 121. And as we said, we can fill the table with more than one line. The user can have more than one access domain and more than one group of access rights. So we will add now to the user another access domain and another access rights groups. And surely it will be the mandatory access domain people flow. So in order to add another access domain and another access rights group to the user, we will press again the plus button, the add button here in the access rights section. And then when this menu add access rights open, we see again this access rights screen. We will click on the access domain drop down, and we will choose now people flow. Here, people flow. We can see that the access rights group is already assigned with the master profile here, and it is okay for us. So we will just press OK to add it to the table. And now we can see that a new line was added to the table. This is the new line with the access domain people flow and with the access rights group master profile. And another thing that we have to pay attention to is the validity. Valid from, we have to assign it the date and time. Valid from and valid to. And when the end date of the validity arrives and it expires, the user will lose all these access rights. And in order to finish this process, we will have to save all these settings by pressing OK at the bottom of the screen here, this button. And by that, all the configurations that we just defined here will be sent to the KONE server. At the same time, an appropriate message will appear in the events log at the bottom of the AxTraxPro screen and will tell us whether the saving operation succeeded or not. As we said before, at that moment, also the KONE server will issue this new user is elevator user ID. Remember this section in the user, this field in the user data section? And the next time we open this user in AxTraxPro and click the elevators tab in his user properties screen, we will see here in this field, we will see the elevator user ID that was issued for him by the KONE server. And you can also see here down in the screen here you can see here the validate button here, which now it is faded and not active. It will be active only after this process is finished. This button allows us to verify that the data and all the users' definitions we just made in this process were updated and saved correctly on the KONE server. Once we press this button, when it is active, we will get the same GUI we have here now, plus another section of credential cards we defined for the user in the AxTraxPro. But this time, all the data in the various sections and the various fields will be filled by information we retrieved from the KONE server. So we can verify that everything was updated and saved correctly on the KONE server. And of course, as we said, the elevator user ID will be filled too. Okay, that's it. Thank you for being with me. Here is my contact information, my email, and my cell phone. If there's any question or information needed, you are more than welcome to contact me by email or by phone. So see you then in our next session. And I wish you a great day. Bye. Bye, everybody. Bye bye.